Do you like kicking people when they're down? Do you like taking more damage than you really should? In that case, today's guide is how to brewer. Now, once again, these videos are designed for newer or maybe intermediate players. If you're an expert, you probably know more than me about Guild Ball anyway. If so, please put comments about how I'm wrong down below. Because after all, Guild Ball is a super deep game. We've got the captain, who is Tapper, the mascot Scum, Friday, Spigot, Hooper, and Stave. Looking at their playbooks first of all. Now, first of all, you can see that they have a lot of knockdown, an awful lot of it. Like the Mason's video, get used to saying the word knockdown. Ready? Knockdown. Normally, tremendous knockdown. They like seeing people on the floor, and when people are on the floor, they like hitting them quite a lot. Secondly, they like pushers. Okay, they have quite a few of them. So they're quite good at moving people towards a scrum for their other friends to help put the boot in. Brewers don't like dodgers. As far as I can tell, there are very few, if any, dodgers in Brewers, but pushers, they've got loads of them. Finally, the damage. Now, Brewers are a damage-dealing guild. You will see that their momentous results are at the ends of their playbooks. Their early damages, their 1s and their 2s, are non-momentous. So how can they get up to those levels? Well, Brewers like their fluff. They like to be in gangs. They like to find people, gang up on them, and teach them a lesson. Brewers' abilities, other than that, they've got a lot of tough hide. They are tougher than Vindaloo mutton, and they have a lot of heroic plays. Okay, so they can spend momentum to get many abilities. So heroic plays are really a thing for Brewers, and the most common move stat for them is around 5-7 with a few variations. So you will find if Brewers get taken out of action, they can have a long walk back to the scrum because they ain't going to get there in one go. So looking at the Brewers characters, next up it is Tapper. First of all, Tapper has a super important to his melee range, making his knockdown on one hit super annoying for people with one melee. In fact, annoying in general, really. He has Commanding Aura. It's basically his signature ability, and as you can see, it makes anyone around him much better at killing folk. Now, it costs 2 influence. I guess the question you're asking, well, if you're asking it, I'll answer it anyway, is do you buy it with 2, or do you try and get it for playbook? Because it's on 4 hits there, or it's 2 influence, which of course is 2 attacks. Now, of course, your mileage may vary on who you're hitting. You might be hitting someone who's defense 2 on the ground, in which case go for it. But assuming you're hitting someone who's maybe, defense 4 armor 1, you have to score 5 hits to get Commanding Aura, which is only about a 10% chance. I'd recommend more often than not you sort of buying it for 2 influence. It does mean you lose 2 attacks, but it also means it actually happens. Of course, with Guild Ball, with all the variables you have in the game, it can vary an awful lot in terms of who you're fighting and so on, but that's worth bearing in mind. 5 hits against that sort of average defense isn't that likely, especially with armor. Now, when he starts swinging, of course, against someone, so assuming he's put Commanding Aura up, they're now defense 3, and he's now attack 7 because of Commanding Aura. He's got a good chance there of scoring 5 hits, which means the chances are he's going to do Mendes 4, at least a Mendes 4 per swing. A common thing, of course, Tapper is to use that momentum to feed into bonus timing further attacks. So suddenly rolling 8 dice, and the pain train really starts off. Now, I don't like talking about odds all the time, but I think it's worth mentioning for these sort of plays because whether you buy it or roll it is quite a big difference for him. Mark target, of course, as to threat ranges, although it's 10-inch range. That does mean he can use it and then go in on someone who he can't normally reach by 1 inch. Suits you, sir. But it's only 1 dice, so not mega reliable. It can be useful, of course, for popping resilience. Borrowing Ball, once he goes in, and you might find Tapper goes in early in the turn to get Commanding Aura up, it means everyone else can follow him with a much more effective charge, meaning they can do more swings. And Old Jaykes. Now, Tapper has a fairly low influence stat, giving 3 to his team rather than a common 4. but he has, with Old Jaykes, the ability to turn one momentum into two influence. So as long as he has momentum, and let's be honest here, Tapper should, he will be able to do that fairly handily and give out to his team. Bear in mind it's allocation, so you can't go over the cap, and he can't give it to himself. Now, Scum is a fairly fast mascot there with a good move and a shadow-like ability, giving effectively its 8-10 move. Tapper is also quite hard to engage with the ability to dodge away from any 1-inch melee models. Now, Scum's got Momentous 2 on 2 hits, which doesn't sound great with Tac 4, but bear in mind, once you have Commanding Aura and people being knocked down, which is pretty likely in Brewers, you're going to find pretty fast that Scum can do fair bit of damage. Next is Hooper. So looking at Hooper here, you can see that, first of all, he is best of friends with Tapper. Okay, Tapper and Hooper are the best of friends because Hooper really wants to have Tapper nearby. First of all, he's quite slow, but he's got 200 melee zone, like I might expect, and his influence is 2-3, so he only can get 3 hits maximum. And his knockdown is on 3, which isn't super reliable with Tac 5. So why bother with that? Well, first of all, he can get +2 tack, of course, with True Grit. Also, he can remove conditions on him. So, for example, he can remove a knockdown on himself and heal at the same time. When he goes into someone, if on the ground, he can shove the boot in, +1 damage to playbook results, and that's why he is best friends with Tapper. So, assuming that Tapper has engaged someone who's on the ground under Commanding Aura, which it might sound like a bit of a combo, but it requires Tapper to simply go in, knock someone down, and activate Commanding Aura, and that's basically it. Suddenly Hooper can go in and shove the boot in, and he's looking at getting, on average, about 6 hits, which works out as being about 7 damage a swing. That assumes only Tapper is crowding someone out and the knockdown under Commanding Aura. Again, so Tapper is going to set people up and Hooper will knock them down. He's got smash-ins, which is good against ball carriers. If you want to give Hooper the ball, or the Hooper isn't going to score that many goals. Tough Skin is good for himself if he wants to activate early in the turn or power someone else up and give them a point of armor, because Brewers tend to have quite low armor anyway. Next is Friday. Now, Friday is much faster than most Brewers. She has a 6-8 move. That isn't entirely accurate because with Shadow-like, she has a 2-inch dodge, making her move kind of 8-10. Unlike a lot of strikers, of course, being a Brewer, she has no barrel dodge. In fact, no dodges at all. So she finds it a little bit harder to disengage with someone, apart from with Shadow-like, which has to be at the beginning of a turn. So she might find some goal runs a bit harder than others to do. That said, she's great at supporting. She has a defense debuff, which in Brewers, when they want to get those wraps in their playbook and get really big hits, it can be a huge way of hurting somebody. And the Dirty Knives late in the turn is 1 damage with 2 poison ongoing, which they might not have a chance to heal. She's also a great ball carrier. Putting her in cover near Spigot with a ball, suddenly she is 5-1, which means getting the ball off it is very hard to do. And of course, ball killing and hiding the ball is definitely more of a Brewers thing than actually scoring. If she wants to score, of course, she can get a 4-10 kick, which gives her a fairly respectable threat range of a maximum of 20 inches. Next up, we have Spigot. So Spigot is a bit sad because, unlike some of his other friends, he has a 1-inch melee zone, which makes him quite sad. Which makes him happier, though, is the fact he's got knocked down in 1 hit. Now, he has got Balls Gone, which is a good ability to get the ball to people with close control, but he barely uses it in my experience, although my experience is limited using him as a footballer. Instead, he's more likely to use Times Called. So early in the turn, put it up, and suddenly everyone has +2 move, which, of course, makes everyone more likely to go in and pick a fight, and if someone is measuring cut ranges out, they might forget the 2 inches from his bonus power. If he wants to go into someone, he's got Flawed. It's not as good as Hooper's ability to stick the boot in, but it does give him tack 7, or of course higher once you're Commanding Aura and other people with melee zones. I mean, he can get to that Momentous 3 much more easily than you might think. Next up, we have Stave. So, Stave, like some of his friends, has a knockdown in 1 hit. However, I'd be careful, value, because if Stave goes near the front line, he might have a lot of health, he might have tough hide, but with defense to armor 1, he gets knocked down and he's going to die and leak momentum like a sieve that's full of momentum that's leaking somehow. His main power is Lob Barrel. So a great way of doing knockdowns and pushers. It's directly away from the centre, so you could do a lob barrel and knock people towards your front lines, which can be a good way of making sure people can't escape your sticks. And also, you can also do it for free. So the chances are Stave can be given little to no influence and still have an effect. Battering ram there is quite good for him to give everyone effectively +2 threat range. So early turn, you can go up to behind, say, Tapper or Hooper and push them forward, meaning again a bit more threat range extension. So Stave can be good for breaking up scrums, but bear in mind his lob barrel is quite short range, and if he's not careful, he is going to get knocked down and die and give a whole barrel of momentum to your opponent, and that's kind of Brewer's trick. So how dare they copy you, really? So next up is an example of how turn 1 works. So you can look at that now. So here we are, first turn again. Maybe one day I get past first turn, go into second turn, but not today. So imagine that, for example, butchers are kicking off here. Again, here's an example. There are many variables in Guild Ball, and ox kicks forward, like so. I think if I was receiving, I'll probably try and collect the ball with scum, and pass the ball around a bit, gain some momentum. Gets Tapper, I probably, when he gets the ball passed to him, make a 4-inch dodge forward. Now at this point here, I would probably use some banked momentum from passing to make sure Spigot put his aura up of +2 speed. Time's called. When Stave gets the ball, he might pass it if he's feeling brave, depending on whether the Tapper has it or not yet. Move him forward and get a battering ram off. Move him to just forward further. Move Hooper up to threaten the flanks later on. And then I'll try to end the turn, probably with a Tapper charge to go into someone and make them regret their life choices. Now, like always, you'll be aware of what your opponent's doing. If you're receiving, you are going to be activating all your models before they have done all theirs, so they'll have last activation. So bear in mind what they've got. All your momentum gaining is for naught if they get it off you afterwards. Best things Tapper being 3-1 can get hit fairly easily. So similar sort of thing if you receive. No, if you kick. Come on, Andrew, be professional here. If you kick, is to probably try and kick with Tapper. See a theme here? Tapper. It's all about Tapper. All Tapper all the time. Anyway, if I get that all off, there we go. Oh, no, hang on. There we go. Kick with Tapper. Move them forward. Kick the ball somewhere. Now, again, in this case, you could, of course, once again, put up times called with Spigot, giving Tapper more threat range. But be aware, because that costs 1 point of momentum, and seeing as you're kicking, you have exactly 1 point. So if your opponent has any range knockdown or abilities that can mess with Tapper that he will need to shake off the momentum, he might be a bit doomed. So only use Spigot's times called if, of course, you are guaranteeing yourself that Tapper won't get knocked down from range or snared or anything else that you can't shake off beforehand. You can, of course, use Stave to bump him forward a little bit. I would move everyone else forward to try and capitalise upon next turn, because ideally you're swinging last activation of turn 1, hurting someone a lot, and then if knocked down, you either send Hooper in to finish them off, or Tapper can activate Commanding Aura and go to town and give out Old Jaykes and more influence to the rest of his team. Once the ball starts rolling with Brewers, it can be hard to stop it, especially if you've got a scum of people, fighting people on the pitch. If they start feeding people into this scrum, that's really what Brewers want to happen. Brewers want to have all their overlapping auras on all times to get all the crowd out, all the commanding auras out, and really have this death ball in the middle. That is peak Brewers Town, and it's a place that you love. You again. Right. I don't know what you want from me at this point. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully put comments down here. I'm going to do more videos about more Guild Ball boxes. If you have any suggestions about which one you want me to do next, please ask, and I might do it. I can't guarantee anything, but I might. And besides, it's that, isn't it? So that's something. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Then I guess you are listening. but you're also watching. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you can turn the screen off now and click on the X, which is up there somewhere.